are giving me more options? StreamYard, I just want to go live. Hey, and we're live. All right. Hey, guys. I hope you are having a lazy Friday. My Friday was going to the lab and getting my blood taken, which is terrible because it makes me almost pass out every single time. And they had to put ice packs on my head and on my chest and give me apple juice and lay me back in a chair like I was being admitted to the hospital. And they took like half an ounce of blood, so utterly ridiculous. But that was my Friday. For y'all's Friday, I am happy to bring you a really cool cat that I met recently. This is Rooney. He runs nonprofit board builders. I probably should have asked him for a bio ahead of time, but what we'll say about him is I'm really impressed at how well he knows and understands boards and really understands how to make your board work as a nonprofit leader. So I'm excited to have Rooney on. Excited to talk with him a lot more about boards. And I think I titled this How to Unsuck Your Board. So we'll jump right in. Rooney, my first question, anytime I interview a expert in the nonprofit space, how did you get into this crazy world of nonprofits?
Well, it was over a decade ago, about a decade ago. I decided to start up my nonprofit. I saw a gap within the community. We had lots of skilled black professionals, but that skill, that talent, that knowledge was not translating to community building. So there was that gap between what they knew, how good they were, and the impact they were creating in the community. And I wanted to bridge that gap. I wanted to build a community where young people could come together to directly impact the community, contribute to community building and nation building. And that was what got me started into the nonprofit space. um, it was a whole lot of experience, coming in as an inexperienced founder, trying to build my board, trying to raise money, trying to execute programs, trying to keep because we have sort of a membership organization, trying to grow the membership. It was a whole lot of experience. I'm trying to do it all by myself because my board then weren't really showing up. So I say it was really one hell of an experience, and that was basically what brought me into this wonderful space, into this space that I've met a lot of other wonderful people just like yourself. And thank you for bringing me on here today.
Oh no, this is for the people listening. I paid Rooney to say that about me, right? I just want to make sure everybody knows. Uh, so we're gonna jump into boards. Very first thing, what was the biggest challenge you ran into with your board as a founder, and is it the kind of challenge that a lot of other founders run into?
Well, the very first challenge was um, I would like to start from the beginning. Basically, I had to bring in friends and family because these were the people I knew. These were the people I could, easily sell the vision to. And they were really very supportive. So the very first challenge was bringing in friends and family because at the time they were hardly participating. And you know that feeling when you know the excuse someone has, and so, for example, we're both friends. I know what you're going through, and then you tell me, "Oh, this is why I can't show up," and you can't really stand up against those because you really know what's happening. Basically, so I had the challenge of participation, and I had the challenge of not being able to hold them accountable because I knew their story, and
Mm.
it was really a difficult situation because that left me funding the organization all by myself. I remember so many times using my own money to run the organization, even going to the point where I was almost getting broke. And no one was joining, no one was trying to support me, no one was trying to, stepping forward to say let's support the organization together. It was one hell of an experience. And I remember talking to my mentor at the time. My mentor, I was almost in tears because at the point I had
Mm.
spent my money to the point where, I was getting broke. Basically, I had used my emergency fund, and It was really one. Remembering it all, it's just bringing back that rush of emotion because, and then I wanted to then hold them accountable. I wanted to delegate responsibility because I felt because I hadn't delegated responsibilities, that was why they weren't showing up, and that basically tore my body in two. As I speak to you,
Mm,
there are some relationships I couldn't get back until this day because I didn't know how to delegate. And I see that
mm,
same challenge among non-profit founders today. They have boards of family and friends. They have board members that they can't get along, that they can't delegate responsibilities to. They can't even confront them because they don't want to ruin their relationships. So I see this over and over again with the founders and the non-profits I work with, and I think there's a solution to it, of course, and I'm sure we're going to get there as we go.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. For those who are watching, go ahead and drop a comment in. It's great to see you hang out with us. You will be able to ask your live Q&A about your board to Rooney as we are chatting. So feel free to do that. So Rooney, you said you talked about a lot of things that I know a lot of founders go through. The having the friends and family board, and really, honestly, you could probably do an entire course on how to handle relationships without destroying them on your board. But let's start from the beginning. What is wrong with the way that founders think about boards that cause them to get a board that is not effective and is not helping them succeed?
hmm I think there are a number of things that are wrong with the way founders think about boards. First, many do not see board members as their powerhouse team. When you get a car, there's a part of the car that's the engine, and that's what powers the entire, car, right? Many founders do not see the board as that engine that actually powers the organization. So because of that, they tend to bring in family and friends, they tend to bring in people just for the sake of having board members. And of course, that's a whole lot of disaster because you find that this work is not a one-man show. You can't do it alone. So, and then when you get in with family and friends or people who you're not expecting to show up as they're supposed to show up, you find that it becomes frustrating, it becomes isolating. So the
Mm.
idea around building boards just for the sake of registering your organization, just for the sake of, just starting your organization is completely wrong. If you
But
want
you
to,
do have to have a board in order to
yeah,
start, right?
yeah.
Like, so what if you don't? What if you're in the position of starting and you're like, yeah, all I know is Aunt Betty and Uncle Jim, and I got to start this nonprofit though. It's still on my heart. What should you do?
Well, of course, we call those kind of boards placeholder boards. But even if
Mm,
you get them to register the organization with you, your first task should be to build a proper board because everything you're going to be building is going to be based on this team. And
mm.
even experienced founders make this mistake as well. When they're building up, they go for governing board members instead of building teams, a powerhouse team or a founding team. A governing board is always going to be a governing board trying to check it you, trying to make sure they provide accountability when they're supposed to be building with you. So it's very important that even if you make the mistake of or you have to bring in placeholder boards to start up the journey, your first task with your placeholder boards you bring in is to bring in the people with the skills, the expertise to be able to support you. And also the idea of just building a board for the sake of a board, I see this even among professionals, and it's completely wrong. You need a powerhouse team that is complete. When I say complete, you need a fundraiser, you need somebody who's going to help with marketing, you need somebody who's going to help with community outreach, strategic planning, HR, because these are the parts, these are the skills that's going to help you build that organization. It's just like somebody who's starting up a business and then you're at the point of bringing in people, you're just bringing in people for the sake of bringing in people. No, you're going to want to build a team that's complete so that you have all the skill sets to help you. And when I say help you, not because these board members are going to jump into the field and start helping you handle marketing, but they're going to help you plan out what is marketing? What is marketing supposed to look like for this organization? Who do we have to bring in to execute? What's the marketing plan we're going to execute on? These are the kind of people you need to bring in so that you can be able to build, a proper organization.
That's interesting. So it's less that you're bringing on. A lot of people look at the board as there's the people that are going to take the work off my plate. But it's less that you're bringing in a board of people to take the work off your plate, and more that you're bringing in a board of people who can bring in people to take up the work off your plate and can like guide and lead in that way. Is that a fair like understanding?
Yes, like I'd always tell founders and board members, the job of the founder and the board is not to do the work. The job of the founder, the role of the founder on the board is to create the roadmap and recruit the team that does the job. And this is one of the reasons why organizations remain at the startup level. They never grow. Because why? The board members who are supposed to be putting, providing oversight, building out the organization, basically doing the high level task, are running around doing the small stuff. They're managing social media, they're doing community outreach, they're doing things that takes them away from the big picture. So if you want to be able to build an organization that's truly going to scale, you must be able to get your leadership to play the big game while you bring in the people who does the work. Like I would always say, one of the roles of the board, that that's first the board is a trustee, and running down from that, one of the role is the facilitator. The board facilitates communications within the community to identify the needs and the solution so that they can then serve as architects that then plan out that solution in a way that it's executable and scalable. And then they mobilize. They tend to mobilize resources, they mobilize the people, they mobilize the community to take charge of even the change they are trying to build. Because when you bring in the change yourself, when you do the work yourself, you leave the community dependent. So you have to be able to mobilize the community and the people to do the work. It's just like an architect. After drawing the plan of a house, you find the architect on site trying to mince the cement, trying to lay the block. That architect can't provide that oversight that's needed to then make the plan go according to the plan. But when the architect draws the plan, mobilize the people, he can then provide that oversight so that the house can go according to plan.
Okay, so this makes sense if I'm a highly paid New York City architect, right? Like I have but tons of money and I will go out and I will hire the people who will then, or my contractor, right, will go and hire people who will do the work, right?
Yes.
But I am a lonely, broke nonprofit founder. And so let's say I hear you, right? Okay, I'm gonna get Uncle Jim and Aunt Betty off of my board, and I'm gonna get some new people in. How do I actually let's make this hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anyone. I'm passionate about my cause. I know literally I lived in a house with Aunt Betty and Uncle Jim for 30 years of my life, and this is my first entrance into society. How do I then go about building that board, that really active, really engaged, that board of leaders that you're talking about building?
Mm-hmm. Well, what you just talked about is one of the most important, it's one of the popular challenges we meet out here when we talk about boards. I just know people, I'm not well connected. How do I then get those professionals to join me? Well, the truth is, it's not about your network, it's not even about the size of your nonprofit, it's your understanding of the board recruitment process. I did an outreach for an organization in Midtown, New York. The name of the organization is Side in Can. Why I can't forget the name of the organization, because I had prospects asking me, what's the meaning of the name? What's Side in Can? Why do we you know? But the funny part was we had over 40 applicants in 2 days for that board outreach we put out. And even though people didn't understand the name, we had quality applicants, strategic planners, non-profit professionals, grant writers, fundraisers who wanted to support. So it's not even about your network, it's not even about the size of your organization, it's not even about the name. It's about your ability to be able to run a successful board recruitment outreach. I'll tell you this, like never before, there are so many people out there who are willing and eager to want to give back. Professionals who want to support organizations, who want to show up as board members. I see this every day. I'm presently running an outreach now, and in less than a day, we already have over 49 applicants. If I could pull up my screen, you did see these applicants in less than a week. So if that's going to run for maybe the next 3 days, we're going to have over 100 applicants for just about 5 rows we're looking to fill within that board. So it's your ability to be able to launch a successful outreach. I run a community on LinkedIn where we connect professionals to non-profit seeking board members and non-profit seeking boards to professionals. We have people joining this community every day, basically eager to show up. I have them on my inbox telling me, I have this skill set over 20 years in organizational development. I want to be able to support organizations. I'm retired. It's your ability to be able to launch a successful board recruitment outreach. It's not the size of the organization. It's not about your network. I myself, I'll tell you, I hardly even know people, but I have lots of people because I always run board recruitment outreach, both from because we also have a database of professionals across the US who's reaching out to us saying they want to join boards. So we have that database. So we're always putting out outreach to have people come into that database, and also we're running outreach for organizations consistently, so we see this result from time to time. And I also see board outreaches out there where over 3 days you have just 3 people applying, or you not even have anybody applying. That's because they don't understand the process. And it's something that can be
Mm.
learned, and once you learn it, it's going to make a whole lot of difference for your organization.
We did get one of our viewers connecting through Rhythm ask, where is this community? Because they want to join. They're a nonprofit, so I imagine they want to join. Can you talk a little bit more about this community? Maybe drop a link to that community in the chat?
I'm gonna have to pull it up. Yeah. So the community, it's non-profit board match. It's on LinkedIn. We also have the community on Facebook, but it's not as active as what we have on LinkedIn. Um, Professionals, basically people with 20 years of experience, 30 years of experience, CPAs. I had the CPA reach out to me. He's called the money doctor. He told me there are only about 20 of these people with this title, the money doctor, in the United States, and he's one of them. He's seeking to join the board. So you can see how much these people want to be, support. So it's the non-profit board match. You can search it up. But let me quickly pull up a link to um, connect you to the group. We're always happy to have non-profits come on board, and then just put up your post seeking board members. You did have people flooding all over your application, and I do it a lot for founders. I do it every day. Any board outreach I see, I put it up there so that they can apply. So if you're looking to join us, search us up or connect with the link that I'm about to drop. Do I drop it in the chats?
You should be able to drop it in the chat. If it does not post, it won't post in some places. I'll post it after we're done.
Okay, so I think I'll have to drop it in the chat because I can't comment from what I'm saying here.
Yeah, all right. I've got the group. I'm going to drop it in the comments, and then it will post to some of the things. It might post. It looks like it posted to YouTube and it posted to the Facebook page. So connecting Sage, you've got it. All right. So let's talk about the actual board recruitment process. So you're putting in an application. Walk through, what does the process look like, soup to nuts? Now we know it's possible, right? Smaller organizations are getting tons of applications for their board. What does the board recruitment process actually look like from start to finish to do it right?
Mm-hmm. So it's actually a 7-step process. But before you even get to the 7-step process, there's what we call the board audit. We tend to audit the board. Usually we do this for organizations with passive boards. So even if you don't have a board or you have a passive board, you should run a board audit. The board audit is basically a diagnosis of what your present board looks like and the gap within your board. So for founders who are running a passive board, there's the founders mirror test to be able to audit your own leadership style so that you know the gap how your leadership is impacting your board that led them to be passive or disengaged. Then there's the complete board test, which is called the blueprint. That's going to help you audit what your entire board should look like. So an ideal board for this organization and what your board presently looks like, so that you can see the gap, and then you know what skill set is missing, who do we need to bring in terms of diversity skill set, or whatever criteria you're looking at your board from. And then of course the self-evaluation audit for board members to self-evaluate themselves. But the most important part of this board audit for this purpose is the complete board audit, where you audit the board to find the gap within the board, so that you can be able to complement the board with the board recruitment process you're about to go to. So once you identify the gaps, you know the skill set that's missing, then you can then come to the 7-step process. The
So
verb.
before you get to the 7-step process, then is this audit available online? Like, if somebody gives you their email, do they get a copy of this audit that they can apply, or how do they get access to this this super secret special formula audit you have?
Well, I'm like I told you the last time we talked. I'm trying to build an app on it so that board founders can be able to do this. Just have the form, and then you can share the form with your board members. You audit yourself, and then you get the interpretation, the response immediately. But for now, I do it for board members. You have to fill up the form, and then I'm going to look through it. I'm going to then provide you a complete response interpreting what's missing, and what the entire board should look like. We also provide the form to people who get our board ultimate fix, because we have a complete roadmap, and with instructions, with the tools to be able to fix your board. So we provide the form, and then we tell you how to interpret it, how to use tools like AI to do the interpretation, so that you can be able to identify the gaps. But of course, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we should be able to roll out the better part of the AI app that can help you audit and then interpret the form. So, but if you want to do the board audit, reach out to me. Since you're on this call, I'll be happy to help you do that for free. That's
There you go.
being the
There's your
benefits
freebie
you
right
get
there.
from connecting with Dan. So yeah, that's basically what it is. Um,
Okay. Do you have a link? I'm looking up on your website right now. Do you have a link to that board audit, or for the call with you thing?
um,
Um,
I'll just say send me an email.
okay.
I'll then send you the form, because
Yep.
what we do is, if you want to get the complete board ultimate fix, that you get the form. But since we're doing it for free now, you just send me an email. Um, I'll just reach out to you with the form, and then you can Rooney at nonprofitboardbuilder.com. So
I'm dropping the email in the comments for anybody who wants it.
So once you send me an email, of course, I'm going to then get back to you with the form. You just fill it up, get back to me. I'll run the interpretation. I can also share the complete board audit, so that you can send to your board members, your passive board members, because the real goal of this audit is to really be able to reactivate your entire board. So one, you're auditing your leadership so that you know how your leadership is influencing and limiting or impacting your board. Two, you're auditing the entire board to see the gaps. And then you're giving board members the opportunity to be able to self-evaluate themselves, audit themselves, so that they know how their own participation is affecting the board. And then you can know how to move forward, whether to let them go, those who are not meeting up, or to get those who are willing to say, I want to step up. You get them to recommit. That's really.
So does it? Do they automatically get an F if you send them the form and they don't fill it out? Like, is that an automatic fail?
Well, what we do is we make the board audit it's not a judgmental audit. We frame it as a strategic step forward for organization. We're trying to
Okay.
get to this next level of this organization, and we know the importance of our leadership. We want to be able to audit ourselves so that we can know how to then improve ourselves to build the kind of organization we all want to commit to. So And then, of course, you're also including a timeline. When you get your board ultimate fix, you get the email templates, all that goes with the form, so that they fill up the form and get back to you as soon as possible. It's it's a complete process that factors in every aspect of it, including them not filling up. And
Yeah, that makes
aside
perfect
after
sense.
audit, of course, there's also what we call the board re-engagement. So because now you have their response, you know where they want to participate, you know how they want to move forward. You have to then meet with them on a one-on-one level to discuss how they either recommit or how they step down gracefully into other aspect of the organization, so that you can be able to build a board that's fully present.
Mm, that's amazing. Okay, so let's get back to the board engagement, the 7-step or the 7-step board recruitment process. Let's talk us through those 7 steps if you want to recruit a really active, really engaged board.
Now, we know where the gap is. We know you need a fundraiser. We know you need somebody who's going to help with marketing. We know you need somebody who's going to help with human resource. Now we know who you need. The first step of the process is the planning. Since we know who you need right now we have to plan. Where do we find these people and how do we bring them in? So that's where you have to plan. And then, of course, you have to define what's the value proposition for joining our board. Because this is where a lot of people miss it out. You think people just want to join your board just because you have a board. You have to be able to determine what's the value proposition. Why should anyone consider joining your board? Because that's going to form the foundation of your outreach content. So all that goes into the planning, the strategy, how to bring them in, the materials you need to bring them in, the timeline. All that goes into the planning. Once you're done with the planning, the next step of the process is developing the materials you need for the outreach. So you're most likely going to need a board recruitment pack, the board outreach messaging, the interview questions, the board application form, your board manual if you don't have one, um, scheduling link for your interviews, all these materials and tools you're going to need throughout the process. You have to create them at the second stage, because it's not when you start putting out outreach that's when you want to start creating materials back and forth. You want to be able to show up to these board members that you are a professional, you run a professional board. So developing those materials, branding them properly is very important before you then go in to the third step of the process, which is where you launch the outreach. So launching
So before we get to the third step, right? So you're talking about a board application. Now, for most people, for most nonprofit founders, the board application is, please won't you join my board? Right, with a pretty please or emoji at the end. So talk to me about board applications. Do you do them for small nonprofits? And if so, what are you putting in this application, and why is it important to have an application to join your board?
The board application is very important. Like you said, the mistake is just inviting people into your board. That alone signals that you're not running a professional board. It signals that you yourself, you're not a professional, a leader that they should follow. When people apply, they tend to put a lot of seriousness into what they're applying into, because they apply, they feel this is serious, then it means I have to show up. So it's the very first subtle sign to saying, we run 100% participation, a serious board. So it's very important they apply, regardless of the size of your organization, they have to apply. And when it comes to the application, their names, what they do, if they've joined the board before, what they would like to contribute to a board, it really depends on the organization, but it's basically like when you're applying for a job, they have to apply that way, because when you apply for a job, this is serious and you want to really apply. um but of course, it's basically collecting those basic information about them. When you go into the interview, of course, you're going to get more information, but you want, regardless of how the form is, it could be 5 questions, it could be 10 questions, it could be 2 questions, but you want to make sure they apply and they know they're applying, so that they are
So you're
stepping forward.
changing the mindset there from I need you to you wants to be involved with this.
Yes.
Basically.
Very
Okay.
important.
All right, so that's our third step. Is that I think it's third step is the application,
Yes,
preparing
the
the materials.
application, putting out.
Let's go on to the fourth step.
So the fourth step, of course, is vetting and the interview. Now you've put out the application. They've applied. You want to vet. One of the reasons why we do the board audits before this process is also to ensure that the board recruitment process is not just founder driven, it's board driven. So that when you do the board audits and then you have the one-on-one conversation with each of the board members, you all have agreed that this is how we want to move forward. You now have a general meeting on, agreeing that this is how you want to move forward. We now know there's a gap within the board that we have to fill. So it means the board is agreeing that we have to go out to bring in people. And of course, with that, you can then tag in one or two members, board members, to yourself to join you in the outreach process. So why I'm explaining this is because when you want to vet, you're not just vetting alone, you're vetting with your board members. You're vetting with
Mm.
your team. So you're putting out the applications. These are the people who have applied. You send it out. Have everybody put in their voice. This is a good candidate. Let's invite this person in for an interview. It's very important. It's a one person view doesn't always work. Have two or three people look at that application and then conclude that this is somebody we should talk to. And also,
So
go
good.
I wanted to talk about when you go into the interview, you also want to be able to show up with one or two of your board members because you're not a one man show. You want to be able to show to the new board member who's coming in that you have a solid board behind you. That sends a subtle sign to them that this is serious and this is I'm belonging to a group and not just working with one person.
So, what are some of the qualities that you advise your clients to look for, or look to avoid in board members that they're bringing on? When you're doing an interview, doing a job interview, you're looking at what are the qualities of this candidate, and to some extent it depends on the values of the organization, but there are also key qualities you're looking into. Like Lencioni's quality of a team player or something like that. So, what are the qualities you're looking for when you're bringing on new board members to your nonprofit?
Hmm. Well, for me, I would say, like I'd always tell the founders, we go into these interviews with your spirit, your intuition is one of the number one factor in judging who a good board member is going to be. So when you ask these questions and you hear them talk, how is your intuition towards this person? You feel this is going to be a good board member? Because a lot of people can put on a good show, but if you have a good intuition, if of course we all have good intuitions, just by talking to you, I can begin to know if this is somebody I want to keep talking to, or if this is somebody who's quite questionable. So first is your intuition. As the founder, you have to be able to be open to see through the person who's talking, and then your spirit can say, I think this is going to be a good person. So first, that's the base of it. And then of course the next step is the culture or the core values of the board you want to build. So you want to build a board that has integrity, a board of people who are humble, who are willing to learn, you are basically looking out for these core values. As you in short, your entire questions are going to be framed up because first, we're inviting them in because we know they match the skill set we're trying to bring in. So it's very evident that some way somehow they're already skilled in. So what we're really looking at that point are the core values, how they match in with the kind of board we're looking to build. Are the proud people? Are the people who take who take the glory for themselves? Because it's very easy to hear some of when you talk to people who are team players, they will always tell you, well, we worked together, this is how we did it, and then you hear some people saying, well, I did this, I did that, and so it's very easy to see past these people. And that's why we always if you remember when I talked about developing the materials, we develop the interview questions before even the the outreach, because now we know exactly what we're going to be asking and what we're looking out for. So of course, yeah, I would say it depends on the organization, depends on the core value, depends on the intuition of the founder. But like you said, team player, people who are open to learn, um, people who are humble. These are one of the best kind of people you want to bring on your board
There was
because
a fascinating study into Fortune 500 CEOs. And what they looked at was they looked at the size of the photo of the CEO in the annual report and compared that with how the employees looked at that person as a giver or as a taker. And they found that the larger the photo of the person in the report, and the more it focused on them and the eye language and all of that stuff, the larger that photo was, the more likely they were to be a taker. And it actually negatively correlated with the company's long-term success.
wow.
Which is insane.
Wow.
so so we do have Sage has a question. Well, I think it's a situation he kind of wants your comment on. I don't see a specific question in there, but he just said, we just had a huge blowout with a board member. Had to call an emergency meeting to vote her out. She went on a smear campaign across social media. That's obviously not fun. Now, we don't have a ton of info about that situation, but if you were thinking about that situation and, what could Sage look at doing differently so that it didn't result in a blowout and a smear campaign? Or what does he do now? I'll let you choose. What does he do now that has happened? You don't know a ton about the situation, but what are some options available to him that he could go from here?
Mhm. Well, first, to make sure this situation doesn't happen, that's why I always recommend running a board audit. Could be once a year, could be once in 3 years, could be once in 2 years. But the board audit helps you see the state. That's why we have the self-evaluation audit. It helps you see the state of each board member per time so that you know if this person is happy with being on the board, if this person is already, drifting away. That's very important because when you give them the opportunity to audit themselves, they tend to tell you, this is where my mindset is as at this time. I want to step off. I think the founder is not, because aside self auditing themselves, they also have the opportunity to audit your own leadership just as you audited yourself and audited them. So you get to hear directly from them, this is really how I'm feeling about the board. This is really how I'm feeling about, at this time. So that when you have that one-on-one conversation, you can then bridge that gap. If you think you're no longer comfortable with being on the board, well, of course, we have the opportunity of you serving as an advisory board member. We have the opportunity of you, moving into a founding, just give them one good title that just pushes them off the board. But of course, if they are still willing to say, I want to be on the board, I like what is happening, I just think these changes has to be happen. You as the founder has to take that feedback and work on it. So that's board audit once a year, once in 2 years. It's very important. It helps you measure and gauge their, interest so that you know how to help them move forward.
Well,
Then,
and
okay,
I'm
go
sorry,
on.
go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead. If you're still, yep, go ahead.
So I want to talk about the after. So now this has happened. I'll always tell you this. There's no need raising a bad blood within the non-profit space, regardless of how the situation has gone sideways. You still want to be able to correct things. So the best thing to do at this time is to have a one-on-one discussion with this board member who's uh even when you want to vote them out, you don't do it from a place of malice, you don't do it from a place, and that's why we have the board audits. So that when you're getting them to step down, it is based on their own feedback. Now you said this, now so that you know how to let them go. But even as it has gotten to this point, you still want to be able to make sure that there's no bad blood, because this work we do is for the community. It's not for anybody's personal interest. So you want to be able to have that one-on-one conversation. I know you are aggrieved. I know you feel very bad. One thing I always tell founders, vulnerability, being vulnerable, right, is one of the best ways to lead a board. Now, this is why I had to do this. This is why I really want this organization to succeed. I've tried to get things right. I know I may not always get it right, but I'm really trying my best. And I want you to be able to understand that, we're all humans. So you being vulnerable, you been expressing why you do the things you do, why you had to do it, especially tying it to the organization's growth, and then getting them to also, because when you're vulnerable you also get them to be vulnerable with you, and then they can also be able to express to them, you saying, this is why I really wanted to be part of this is why. And then once you come to a sense of agreement, she can always go back online to correct those perceptions that she's put out there, because you don't want that to keep running. Even if she keeps going for the next 1 year, she may still keep talking about the situation out there. So, but you want, when you're able to correct it, she can start correcting this information out there, empowering your organization the more. So, have a vulnerable
Yeah,
conversation. Speak from the point of, this is really why we had to do this. This is really why we did this. We're sorry. Is there any way we can correct things with you? Is there any way we can, get things right? Find a
it
place to
it
bring her in.
that approach. I can share a story. I had a donor that I was courting, and I made some rookie mistakes in courting this donor. Like, I was kind of thinking they would be my anchor person, and like all I got to do is win this, and then we're off to the races, kind of thing. And I was courting this donor, and it was going really well. So we had the first conversation of like, this is the vision, this is where we're going. Okay, great. This is something you would financially support. Yep, I'll financially support this. Fantastic. We'll jump to the next meeting. We have the next meeting, present the budget and the project, and the donor did not like the budget that I presented. And but I know what is necessary, and know what I needed. And this is not that long ago, just to show you that like we sometimes forget our own teaching. This was not that long ago. This was like a couple months ago. And I'm like, I am the nonprofit professional consultant. I know what I'm doing here. And we got almost into a shouting match on this call. And I left that, and then the worst thing happened, which was like we weren't able to actually bring it down and cool it off by the end of the call. So he's like, I just gotta go, we gotta run, and then that's it, right? And the call ends. And that bothered me a lot. And I was like, okay. So I sat for a while and I thought about where can I take ownership for how this went? Where can I, as the founder, as the person who's raising this money, where can I go? You know what? It was hard because I was right in some ways, but how was I wrong? And how I was wrong is how I approached it. How I thought of that donor as, this is going to be my anchor. This is going to be where we're going from here. Mm-hmm. I approached it in not being compromising. Maybe this is how the organization needs to operate, but that donor doesn't have to fund this particular thing. And we can find some flexibility there. It took me probably 3 days. I let things cool off, and then I reached out. And in that outreach message, I did stand. There was, a principle that I had to stand on, and so I stood on that principle. But the message was, "Hey, this is what I did wrong, and I treated you badly in that way." I understand if this is where it ends, but I appreciate your time, everything you put in. This is me, and I'm now regularly in contact with this person, even though we were practically yelling at each other over the phone. I back you up in saying, if you have a relationship go really sour, put in the work to be the person who figures out what you can apologize for. You don't need to apologize for everything. You're probably justified in some of the actions you took, but find the areas where you messed that up and focus on those areas when you reach out to that person, If you have to stand on something because you need to communicate it, fine. Like you said, we had to make this decision. Cool. But at least you took the time to see them as a human being afterward, and that can really take the fire under them to go after you out of the equation.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Okay, so let's finish up with the board outreach process. We hit step 4, which is you've interviewed these board members, you have vibe checked them, and you were like, these guys passed the vibe check. What's next?
So now they've passed the interview. I would always
Mm-hmm.
say never give a yes during the interview call, even though you feel these guys are perfect. Oh, they meet all our, they click all our boxes, but never give the yes during the interview call. Go back to your board, go back to your personal reflection to, reflect and then send a conditional approval message. You know, we're happy to have spoken to you. We've reflected on your interview and your application, and congratulations, we're bringing you on the board conditionally based on if you pass the background check and the reference check. So this is
Smart.
serious. This is serious process. This is you're letting them know they're coming into something serious. And aside the fact that you're trying to paint the picture of seriousness to them, you're also because there are some grants you're going to apply for. These are some things that are going to put you at the edge. That's going to give you the opportunity than others. You run a background
Mm,
check, especially for organizations that attend to vulnerable and at risk population. It is very important you run a background check. And the funny thing is, your local sheriff office can help you with that for free. I think they help for as much as 3 areas of the background check. But if you want to run a wider background check, you could pay as small as $14, $15 per person to some companies, and they're going to handle the entire process for you. So aside the background check, we also want to do a reference check, because the truth is the online world is a place where a lot of people wear masks these days. So you want to make sure they are really who they say they are. So you want to email their references, maybe just put in a call for a minute or two just to get that confirmation. And all that also turns back to, show that you are a serious person and you run a serious organization. So running that background check, once it comes through, you send them the complete congratulatory message. Congratulations, you've passed through the processes. Now it's time for the onboarding. Pick a time.
that
Let's have our onboarding session.
no, that is incredible. So I have one, I think, fundamental question that founders have. But let's recap just before we do the 7 steps. Can you walk us through real quick? Remind us, what are the 7 steps in actually recruiting a board you can count on?
So board audits, planning, based on you defining how to recruit these board members, where to find them, the process to recruit them, the materials you need, the timeline, the unique value proposition, right? And then going on to develop the materials. After developing the materials, you then launch the board outreach. Um, the board launching the board outreach is basically going where your prospects are. So if you're looking for a fundraiser, of course, there are fundraising associations, platforms like LinkedIn, and you know, so go where they are. If you're looking for a logo person, there are bar associations. If you're looking for a Christian, you're most likely going to go to a church. If you're looking for a Muslim, you most likely have to go to a mosque. So it's basically going where the people are. And then once you launch the outreach, they apply. The next is to vet and interview. That does one step together. After vetting and interviewing, of course, you then run the background check, reference check. Those are one step as well. Once they pass through the reference and background check, you then invite them in for the onboarding call.
That is fantastic. Okay. Our final question is a doozy. The number one reason that I hear from founders for why they are not growing their board is they will vote me off the nonprofit. basically, that there's a fear, and I would argue it's a legitimate fear in some places, that if you bring on a board that has legal power over your nonprofit, your founder, you're the one who is spending, even if you have an active board, they're spending maybe 8 to 10 hours a week on your nonprofit. Most of the founders I know, their nonprofit is their full-time, sometimes unpaid job. So you're putting in 4x the effort of your board. They're not as engaged, yet you're going to bring these on, and they're going to have as much or more power to kick you off your nonprofit than you would. How do you help? How do founders navigate that tricky legal scenario?
Well, aside the fact that that's a legitimate fear, one of the reasons why founders think this way is what we call the founder's syndrome, founderities, or the founder's paradox, where you want to have complete control over what you build. And it's very important you're able to know where this fear is coming from. Because if it's the founder syndrome, it's most likely going to limit your organization. And one thing I would always say is nobody owns a non-profit. So the more you operate from that perspective, the more it's all yours. Just like Jesus Christ said, the more you let go of something, the more it comes back to you. So first of all, you have to put that orientation aside. This work is for the community, and if anybody is saying they want to take charge of this work for the community, you should even be sharing them on. So there is no reason for you to fear. And the good thing about building a non-profit is not really the non-profit itself, it's who you become in the journey of doing so. Because even if that non-profit fails or that non-profit walks away, you're going to build something bigger with just a little time, because you have now become the kind of founder who can create those results. So, but again, that fear is completely understandable. And one of the things we do is we have to put in a clause into your bylaw saying the founder is a permanent member of the board of the organization and cannot be voted out. So we do this for founders who have that legitimate fear of, I don't want to be voted out. And so it's very easy to put that into your bylaw, and then it's every board member during the onboarding session. We also review the bylaws so they know. And one thing you should also think about is if you're not bringing in a group of friends into your board, these people are different people from different places. So if they're able to come together behind you and agree to vote you off the board, then you shouldn't even be on that board. Because you're basically the connecting point. So if they should have more connection outside your circle to be able to do that, that's a huge red flag. And one of the things we also do is we put in accountability processes so that, like I told you that last time we talked, I recommend you talk to your board members at least twice a week. So on a Monday, you're asking what we have to do, what resources, what support do you need. On a Friday, you're asking what did we do, what lessons did we learn, and it could just be a 1 minute call. So having that continuous communication, touch, it's always going to keep you, at par with your board members, that you can't even have a situation like that come up.
That is awesome. We have about 30 seconds left. So, Rooney, tell us how to find you, and tell us your favorite sports team, because we're all dying to know whether you actually like sports like a normal human being, or you hate sports and are just a nerd.
I'm not really a sport person. I hardly. My wife would always say you're too serious.
All right, fine, nerd.
Yeah.
Tell us where to find you.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and on Alignable. Those are my main platforms. Just search Rooney, and if you search Rooney and Akbesiri, that's my last name. You can find me on any platform. I'm also on Facebook, but you know, I'm not very much as active on Facebook as I am on LinkedIn and on Alignable. So, but search me anywhere. You also have my email. Reach out to me, Rooney at nonprofitbuilder.com, or visit our website, nonprofitballbuilder.llc.com. Send us a message, text me. We're always happy to talk about this. This is the work we do. This is what we love. This is our purpose. This is why we exist. So we want to be able to help you as much as we can.
Thank you so much for coming on, Rooney. I know it's been a while since I've done this live stream. If you guys like it, maybe I'll do it again. There was enough, I think, likes and like comments in here that I feel like doing another one. I might not feel like doing one after that if you don't engage next week. So we'll see where it goes. Have a wonderful rest of y'all's day and weekend. Thanks for tuning in, Rooney. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.